Let me be the first to introduce you to World Boss Legend Plus, Black Swan. This is the new pinnacle boss in Marvel Future Fight, the most difficult content that you can put your account up against today. Now, Black Swan is a really cool villain. There's lots to get into, but her fight itself is actually quite simple and a little bit charming. So I want to dive into it, show you guys firsthand what it takes to defeat her, and give you tons of tips and tricks that you can use to put your roster to best use. Now, for this first clip here, I'm going to be playing with my regular stats. That means my 25% maxed out Pierce cards, and I'm going to be using a team of Ghost Rider, Rogue, and Venom. But as you will see, you do not need supports, leaderships, or in most cases even Pierce to clear Black Swan. So have no fear. You just need to focus on getting tier 4s and then understanding the fight. So the fight starts off with a 5-second intro where Black Swan gives herself this shield. And this shield actually doesn't work too well for her because, as you can see, I'm actually still dealing damage to her. But the shield prevents her from taking a lot of damage. But what you're aiming to do is break that blue shield at the bottom. It looks very similar to the stamina bars in a lot of video games, or the parry bars in games like Sekiro. Once it fills up, she will be broken, she'll get stunned, she'll be interrupted, and then you can actually deal full damage to her. So you're going to see here in a second, we're going to break it. She's going to be stunned. She actually kneels and stops attacking. She's stunned for a duration, and now you can unload on her. As you can see, her health bar is decreasing rapidly. That is essentially the whole organization of the fight. That is your goal. Your goal is to break that lower bar, right? Deal damage and hit her consecutively over and over again, right? It doesn't matter how much damage you're doing. It matters more the number of hits that you're doing to build up that blue bar. And then when you break the blue bar, then you can do massive damage to her. But while you're chipping away at the blue bar, you're also chipping away at her HP. Keep in mind that if you don't hit her for a time, just like Ultron builds up his optimization, when you don't hit him, she will decrease her shield. Or the shield itself will decrease. So as you're going to see here, as I'm not attacking her, the shield is decreasing. This is her first major attack. She creates a giant wave, and then she blasts 1, 2, 3 times. You have to dodge to the very front of the arena at the beginning, and then you have to be in the circle for those 3 waves. So in a way, she sort of combines attacks from Ultron and Null and different bosses in a way that seems fresh, but also familiar in a way. So I actually really like that about her. And you can consider her bar at the bottom essentially an inverse of Ultron's optimization bar, where Ultron's optimization bar, you want to make sure it's as low as possible by constantly hitting him. For Black Swan, you want to continuously hit her to build it up so that you can then do massive damage once it's broken. So that first phase that she did with the full screen blast and then the 3 circles that we were safe in, that happens at around 45 bars. We're coming up to the next attack here, the next major attack she does at 30 bars. So once you break 30 bars, whether she has the shield or not, she is going to cutscene you. There is one sort of mostly unskippable cutscene for Black Swan. However, if you stun her at around 35 bars by breaking her blue stamina, and then you unload on her, then you can actually skip this phase if you do enough damage. But that's a bit tricky, and we're not going to get into the specifics of that right now. That would depend on your build, your characters, your team up, and how well you can actually play. Once you get to around 30 bars, she's going to initiate her more deadly phase. The screen turns red. You can think of this as an Enraged phase, and this will now persist for the rest of the fight. So her base attacks have changed. She has a whole new motif. What she's going to do is she's going to jump up and laser the ground. That hurts a lot. And then she's going to track you, and she's going to drop these walls. She's going to summon walls. It looks like a jailer effect from Diablo 3. It's a very cool effect. And she's basically going to do an AoE here, and then she's going to repeat the process. She's going to laser, and she's going to target you with these walls. The walls themselves hurt, but what hurts more is the fact that you can't walk through the walls yourself. They do disappear after a while, as you can see there, but you actually can't walk through the walls. The walls will repel you when you try to go up to them. So this is actually really important. Your positioning is very important, because let's say, for example, you get hit here. Look, I've now cut myself off from the rest of the arena, and I actually can't go anywhere else. I'm trapped here fighting her in this really small area where it's much harder to dodge. And she's actually going to do this again before the first set of walls actually goes down. So you can see this can get really crazy really fast. This is actually something that I think is very, very charming because it engages the actual environment around you and it forces you to be very thoughtful of your positioning. So my advice to you in this phase is to always go to the corners. When you see her do that laser move, that's your cue to hit the corner. Any corner you want, hit the corner, wait, and then go away from the corner. This way, the wall won't actually impede you very much at all, as long as you're on the inside. If you're on the other side, you're sort of screwed. In between these wall attacks, these flip back laser wall attacks, in between those, you have an opportunity again to whittle down her stamina bar, like, you know, deal damage to break that bar. When it's red and when you see that little broken shield icon, that essentially means underneath her health, when it's a broken shield and it turns red instead of blue, that basically means that she's extra weak. And your attacks will deal additional stamina damage to her stamina bar to deplete it even faster. So you can sort of take this as a sort of a moment to strike, if you will. Once you've broken her bar, of course, you're at the same situation as before, where you can deal massive damage, and she will essentially just kneel and be stunned for a set amount of time. Then, when we get to about under 20 bars, it's usually between 15 to 10 bars, so right at the end, you don't get a cutscene, but you get a sort of final attack. Now her pattern is going to change one more time, and this one is quite a bit more deadly. So she's going to do the following pattern of attacks. She's going to do a cross attack 3 times with a rotation, and you can actually walk away from it. It doesn't cover the whole arena, but if you're near her, you will have to run either clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on her rotation. I recommend just backing away because it does a lot of damage. After that, she will do an outwards to inwards attack where there will be purple lines that will appear and then blast, and then they will move in and do it again, and then one in the middle. This is, again, very similar to Ultron's energy from another dimension phase, except the pattern for where you move is much simpler, and you just have to remember to just wait and then move. So I just wait here. When the first blast happens, I move, and it's done. Now, for this next attack, Black Swan is going to summon circles with gap circles in between. So it's basically every other circle is going to blast, and then the spots are going to alternate, and they're going to blast again. There's 3 blasts in total. It's very similar in terms of the pattern shape to Kang's attack, where he summons a blast circle that slowly closes in on you, sort of stage by stage, area by area, except Black Swans all blast at the same time, and they're just, alternating circles. So as you'll see for the first blast, I'm going to, it's actually very hard to see which of the zones have blasts and which ones don't, because they're just shades of purple. So I would rather just remember this. You want to stand sort of far from her, but not too close to the black outside for the first blast. And then for the second blast, you want to be really close to her, like right up against her. And then for the third blast, you want to be away from her. It's actually important to point out why you want to be close to her, because during all of these attacks that she does, you can actually hit her and continue to chip away and build up her stamina bar so that you can guard break her and stun her again. She's not an iframe for any of these attacks, so if you have an opening, if you see an opening, if you have a V-pad skill, if you can cast a skill that deals a lot of damage over time or has like a long lingering effect and then run away, switch to a character, cast something, switch back, all of those will be effective ways to still build up her stun bar, the stamina bar at the bottom, while she's doing this. So as you'll see here, we're going to stand a little bit away from her. The first ring is going to blast, then we're going to go close, we're going to attack, we're going to be free, and now we would have been, if we had done the animation faster, we would have been fast enough to jump out. But during that second blast, you can actually sneak in and get some sneaky hits off on her. After that attack, she's going to do her final attack, and this final attack will become part of her new rotation, where she now does the jump back laser beam, summons the walls, and then does this attack. This attack is very potent. She basically will show you it looks like a Pac-Man. It's almost a full circle, but there's a little slice taken out. That is the safety zone, and it will rotate 5 times. And then she will do 5 punches on the ground, which will blast those 5 zones with the rotation. You can technically, if you're fast enough, rotate with the safe zone and be safe, but my advice is it's way too hard. Just back away to where the black lines are, more or less, and you will be safe. As you'll see here, she's going to show up this Pac-Man shape. She's going to do it 5 times here. I don't know why she's not doing it. It's very bizarre, but she's going to do it in a second here. There's the Pac-Man shape 5 times, and she's going to blast off. If you just steer clear of it, you'll be fine. She does it 5 times, and then you can jump in. From here, she's just going to go back to doing the flip black laser into the walls, into this this 5 Pac-Man attack. You can see here she's doing it. This is also where I would recommend using your co-op skill if you can, because the co-op skill will give you immunity to her attacks temporarily while she's doing that purple attack. As you can see at this point, there's not a lot of time in between her attacks to really get off a lot of your own attacks. So you have to be really quick, and you have to really pick your spots carefully, because otherwise she's just going to continue looping in that way, and then you won't be able to finish her off. General tips I have for you against Black Swan, starting off with, remember her typing. She's a speed type character, so take advantage of that by using combat characters who have full type advantage against her. That's up to 55% increased damage. So characters like Gladiator, Captain America, Black Panther, Moon Knight, Venom, even Dr. Octopus, of course, and possibly Wolverine will be great against her because of that type advantage. Alternatively, consider that characters who are blast types are going to struggle against speed types because they have type disadvantage. So they have 20% or 30% less damage dealt. So characters like Doctor Strange, Magneto, Cable, Blue Dragon, Sharon Rogers, they're going to struggle against this boss. So if you're playing with one of them and you're having a hard time, then it may be the reason that the typing is a disadvantage to you, and you should switch it up to a different type. Because the main goal of this Black Swan fight is to hit her repeatedly to build up her stamina bar until it breaks and stuns her, you want to think about using characters that have lots of hits on all of their attacks and don't have any downtime in between hits, so that they're constantly hitting her. Because as I mentioned before, if you stop hitting her, let's say your rotation is on cooldown, you can see that the bar will actually start to shrink and go back to its original position, which essentially just draws out the fight. So even though in this case Moon Knight has a great advantage because of his typing, he has a rotation like Sharon Rogers and like others where he does a bunch of burst damage, and then there's a pretty long gap here of a few seconds where he's not doing anything until his next rotation. That actually means he's going to have a harder time, and he's going to take longer to build up that stun bar. And that stun bar, exhausting her stun bar and getting the big stun is really where the mega damage comes in. As you can see from this right here, this is where the real damage comes in, because when the shield is up, when her blue shield is up, none of your procs, your CTPs of rage or energy or destruction, etc., those aren't going to activate, because you're not actually dealing basic damage to her. You're only dealing instinct damage. A bonus tip for this battle is to consider that Black Swan herself is an alien villain. So all of the regular villain buffs from Striker effects and Mystique's uniform will apply here, but also artifacts that deal increased damage to aliens will have an increased enhanced bonus effect like they do for bosses like Gore. So you can consider Dr. Octopus one of, if not the best choices for Black Swan World Boss Legend, because his artifact specifically increases his damage by up to 25% against alien characters. Now keep in mind, this is increasing his basic damage. It's my camera blocking, but yeah, it's basic damage here, which won't work when her shield is up. But when it's down, you'll see massive damage. I mentioned Dr. Octopus first and foremost because of his typing, but of course we have other options that also have that same buff against aliens, like Rogue's artifact. So keep that in mind if you have artifacts or if you have effects that increase damage to aliens, increase damage to boss types through buffs like Beta Ray Bill. Those are going to apply versus Black Swan, and they're going to make her hurt. So what do you think of this new endgame pinnacle boss for Marvel Future Fight? Is Black Swan worthy of the hype, or is something missing from this fight that you wish it had? Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button, it helps out the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.